Hi, Cameron.
Hi, Chloe. This is for Callan.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, how's it going? Good to see you again. Happy Saturday. So Cam and Chloe, Chloe the waterfront coordinator from last year, and Cam who worked at camp for many years before, found the next chapter. And they found it in this weird jar thing and then put it in the ground. And I was going on a hike this morning, and Wallace told me that I should bring a shovel for some reason. And what do you know? He was out there waiting for me to dig up this jar, which had the next chapter in it. And so I opened the jar, and as soon as I opened it, the pages just kind of disappeared and vanished. So I came back to the house, and I opened up the book, and the chapter had magically gotten into the book one way or another. So we got chapter 3. I'm ready to read it. Are you? Let's do it. Chapter 3, The Battle of the Hayfield. The summer sun was just starting to show its face in the valley. The days got warmer and warmer during the late May afternoons. As the ground softened and the frost melted away, the wildflowers and grasses of the Ossipee Mountains started to flourish. The blueberry bushes at the waterfront returned to green, and the frogs and tadpoles swam curiously along the pond's edge, happy to see that almost all of the ice had melted away. The thousands of birds who called the trees their homes seemed to chirp louder and wake earlier in the morning, the wishing tree had noticed. A local cat, whose family lived nearby, had wandered over to the base of the tree and lazily flopped into a sunny spot near the trunk. Ever so carefully, the tree reached down with one of its branches and gave it a small scratch behind its ear. Eventually, the cat climbed up the leaning branch up into the tree until she found a comfortable spot to take a nap. On the stoop in front of the tree, a small postcard sat, waiting to be read. Dear Wishing Tree, hey, it's Jacob from Canaan last year. I understand why we can't go back to camp this summer, but it's still not easy. My cabin has been together since we were pioneers, and we were going to be 4-week trailblazers this summer. My family has been playing a lot of games together, but I can't wait to be back to play Capture the Flag. I've been coming up with some strategies. I just wish I could use them now. Yours, Jacob from Canaan. Ah, the Rock Trolls, some of the humblest and hardest working creatures in the entire state of New Hampshire. They are also some of the shyest folks you can imagine. The Rocks had taken residence on the hill near the activity center when the camp was first being built. Eventually, they found it so comfortable that when the amphitheater was created, they immediately volunteered to serve as the benches, thrilled by the idea of supporting Merrowvista's community members in their quest to develop their best selves. They felt important, strong, noble. Their flat heads and smooth surface made for perfect seating, and they didn't mind the company either. From where they stayed, lodged in the side of the hill, they had watched dozens of MV theatrical productions, MV idols in closing circles. They had watched campers complete their climbing goals and play dodgeball on rainy summer afternoons. When the wishing tree called the rocks' attention from just a few feet down the hill, the rocks rolled from the dirt that had held them in place for so long. Lumpy, some would say, the surface of the rock troll's skin was weathered with lichen and dusted with dirt, which got stronger as kids ripped up the grass when they didn't want to pay attention to a certain MV Idol performance. They, of course, paid full attention when the nose flutes emerged. Ah, the glory of Chris Morse. Anyway, as they emerged groggily from the hill, there was a slight rumbling to the ground. One by one, they plummeted forward, with the smallest of the trolls almost bouncing off the AC floor due to their lengthy descent. One would think a rock troll's face would have limited expressions, due to the rock and all, but no. These were charismatic souls, contorting their stone features to express an impressive range of emotions. But their expressions of competition and brainstorming were some of their most striking. Once one troll had an idea, the whole troll fleet would suddenly be deep in thought, furiously wrinkling their foreheads, almost as if their minds were one single entity, making them a fierce competitor to anyone who dared challenge them. The tree called down to the rocks. "Calling igneous, calling granite, calling my wonderful friends the stones. It's time to rise up, rub your eyes and shake your bones. It's been far too many years since I've seen your expressive faces. I call upon you for a game with cheers. Soon it will be off to the races. At each end of the A field, your foe's flag you must obtain. I really hope it's sunny. Nonetheless, we'll play in rain. So stretch those legs, hydrate up. The battle of the A field is starting soon. It's the Rock Trolls versus the Raccoons, starting tomorrow at 6 past noon." Bursting with excitement, the Rocks spent the next 24 hours preparing for the next day's competition. While easygoing most of the time, as soon as the Rocks got wind that a competition was afoot, their entire disposition changed. That afternoon, they did a group jog. Well, it was more like a group roll, on the path through the meadow and around the eating lodge. They used the basketball court to practice defense drills, bobbing and weaving through the cones they had found in the athletic shed. The raccoons, who had also been contacted by the tree, made similar preparations of their own. As the resident renegades of the Canaan Valley, the raccoons usually kept to themselves, but just like the rocks, there was nothing like a healthy competition to bring them out of hiding. Stealthy, crafty, and cunning, the group of trash pandas had a few tricks up their sleeves that they knew would give them an advantage during the game. In their mind, it was time to reclaim the A field for the raccoons again. And what better time than the Battle of the A field for them to mount a takeover? The next night was perfect weather for a game of capture the flag. The early evening sun poked out just behind Flag Mountain, illuminating the battleground. The Roots had measured out the exact dimensions for all the boundaries and had placed cones neatly around the A field. They had made the flag and jail circles on either side and carefully placed the cut-up pool noodles that would be used as flags inside the circles. The tree had set them to deliver paint to each of the teams beforehand, and the Rocks spent the entire afternoon rolling themselves in red paint. The raccoons carefully used their tails to paint each other's faces with blue paint as they made their final preparations for their secret weapons. The Roots around the bell confidently rung the bell 17 times to signal the teams to gather. From the AC path came the Rocks, marching in formation, singing the songs of their people. The smallest and quickest Rocks took the lead as the larger, more defensive Rocks brought up the back of the formation. The chant they sung went. Okay, so it says I need to chant, so I'm going to do my best. "We the rocks of earth and stone, benches, we the AC our home, for Daniel Hope we do our best, put our perseverance to the test." They must really like Daniel Hope or something. The Rocks, rolled in red, made their way to the soccer goal nearest them as the first of the raccoons started to appear from the L Village forest. Their blue tails whipping back and forth, the raccoons pulled a dish cart that they must have stole from the dish room behind them. Draped with a blanket, there was no way to see what was on the cart, But the Rocks were not intimidated. They were going to win this game fair and square. The game was a best out of 5, with the first team to win 3 rounds taking the title. With the 2 teams ready, the Roots rung the bell 10 times to signal the start of the game. The Rocks and the Raccoons ran towards the center of the A field and started to size up their opponents. The Rocks were far more organized than their opposition, making sure to assign different Rocks to attack and defend. A few minutes in, the Rocks had tagged a dozen or so Raccoons who sat impatiently in the jail circle. "Barricade formation," one of the large Rocks called while defending the flag circle. Like clockwork, or rockwork, I suppose, the stones lined up and started charging towards the Raccoons' flag circle, protecting a few speedier Rocks from being tagged. It worked like a dream, and before you knew it, the Rocks secured the first round. They cheered the speedy Rock who brought the flags across the finish line and quickly got ready for round 2. The second round happened much like the first one did, with the disorganized Raccoons jumping and falling all over the field. While they had speed and maneuvering skills, they never thought that they would be going up against actual strategic formations. Using a flying V strategy, the Rocks easily won the second round. Their preparations and training were obviously paying off. With 1 Rock capture away from defeat, the Raccoons knew that it was time to unveil their secret plan. Ripping off the blanket from the dish cart revealed what looked like 10 kite-like devices with climbing harnesses attached to the bottom. Smirking, the Raccoons started to climb into the hang gliders that they had constructed out of sticks, leaves, and bits of trash they had scavenged from the dumpster. Climbing up the posts of the soccer goal, the 10 flying Raccoons pulled down their homemade aviator goggles over their eyes and waited for round 3 to start. As the bell rung to start the round, the Raccoons jumped off the crossbar and into the air, soaring over the heads of the Rocks who looked up with panicked expressions. Floating into the flag circle, some of the pilots made it all the way to the other side of the A field and landed on the opposing team's crossbar, crossbar. The Raccoons who landed in the flag circle simply threw the flag to those Raccoons on the crossbar who safely flew it back to their territory. It is no surprise that the Raccoons secured the next 2 rounds easily, as the Rocks tried desperately to come up with a new strategy to defend against the vertical trash pandas. The entire night's doings would come down to one final round. The Wishing Tree had been watching from down the hill and was disappointed at the Raccoons for their tricks. It was definitely not best self capture the flag. They thought of what they could do to help the Rocks, but because there are no trees on the A field, they struggled to find a solution. Before the final round started, the Rocks finally came up with a strategy on how to defend their flag circle. Using the larger rocks as its base, the Rocks formed a giant wall that surrounded and defended the flag, with the smallest rocks on top of the wall to tag the pilots. The strategy worked perfectly as the round started. Any pilot who dared venture near the flag circle was easily tagged by the high-up rocks. The Rocks had a secret strategy of their own, and now that the aerial offensive was being kept to a minimum, the largest of all the Rocks, Igneous Iggy, signaled for the fastest rock, Sedimentary Tony, to jump into his arms. With a throw that even Tom Brady would be proud of, Iggy chucked Tony all the way across the A field and into the Raccoons' flag circle. The Wishing Tree gave a small cheer and quickly covered their mouth. Seeing that the Rocks were just one run away from the Raccoons were one run away from losing the game, the Raccoons circled the flag circle where Tony tightly clutched the blue pool noodle. As they got closer and closer to the circle, Tony could see no way of escaping and bringing the flag to safety. Just then, the Roots opened up a rock-sized hole in the grass right in front of Tony. The Wishing Tree cheered once more and yelled, "Roll, Tony, roll!" Following the Roots' lead, Tony jumped into the hole where he started digging towards the other side of the A field. The Raccoons desperately tried to dig into the soil to tag him, but Tony was far too quick. Bursting out of the ground, Tony crossed the midline and scored the final point, blue flag in hand. The Rocks had done it. The battle of the A field was theirs. The tree gave a hip hip hooray from down the hill and shouted, Well, golly, you did it. The title goes to the Rocks. That game was so intense it had me nervously knitting my socks. You came together as a team. You worked hard and used collective brain power. Champions of the A field, I hope you feel the opposite of sour. With that, the Roots took the blue pool noodle and replaced it with a plaque commemorating the Rocks' incredible victory over the Raccoons. The Raccoons applauded and the Rocks graciously, commending the Rocks on their ability to think outside the box. They then returned to the forest to their homes. The Rocks applauded as the Raccoons left the A field, recognizing the incredible fight they put up. Singing and cheering, the Rocks rolled back to the AC hill, happy to have gotten some exercise, some fun, and just a smidgen of competition. A huge summer rainstorm hit the valley that night, with streams of water carving paths through the various walking paths of Merrowvista. The aluminum roofs of the cabin vibrated with the falling rain, creating a kind of percussion performance, accompanied by the sound of puddles being filled with droplets. The circle trees were elated to hear that another artifact was on its way, as the tree that represented the Trailblazers waited for the Roots to bring as the tree that represented the Trailblazers waited patiently for the Roots to bring their delivery. Within the circle, the stone skipper's license from last week sat alone on the bench. When the artifact arrived from the Roots, the trees oohed and awed at the pool noodle made completely out of stone. The wishing tree had really outdone itself this time. Slowly and carefully, the tree outside the circle gently placed the noodle down next to the skipper's license, in the section where the campers of Sentinel, Liberty, Canaan, Lafayette, Carterdome, Lincoln, Madison, and Little Haystack would have sat, and have sat for dozens of summers before. The fire that was completely unlit before began to emit a small purple spark, knowing that something was coming. Two sections represented. The tree smiled from the meadow. It was happening. The creatures were learning. The tree couldn't wait to see what would happen next. Shutting their eyes, the tree dribbled basketballs in their dreams. End of chapter 3. End of chapter 3. That was great. I like those rock trolls. It's funny to think that they've been living and serving as benches for the last who knows how many years. I wanted to say something else too. If you have a tree that you want to send to the wishing tree, you can send it to this email, which I'll put something here. Whether it's a letter you want to send or a comment about the story, an idea for the story, maybe you drew a picture or something, just send it to this email here, wherever it is, and it will be seen. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited for next week. I have no idea what's going to happen. But great. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend and have a great week, and we'll see you soon.
On the loose to climb a mountain, on the loose where I am free, on the loose to live my life the way I think my life should be. For I only got a moment in this whole world